that he was a management consultant at PwC. So I can relate to that in various ways. He sits on various boards, and he was also part of an organization which has been dubbed the world's leading search engine marketing technology, which was really exciting. From what I understand, this is your third startup. So I guess one could consider you a serial entrepreneur, like many of us here on this call. So yeah, I think I'll just jump right in. I'm sure you've been asked a bunch of questions before, given the impact and reach of DataFree. So I'm going to try and keep the questions interesting. Maybe to start off, you can give us a little bit of a background around how the idea of DataFree came to pass, and what was the kind of, I suppose, inflection point, or what was your aha moment that led you to really start thinking around building DataFree?
Thank you for the introductions from all of you, and it's a pleasure to be here speaking with you all. And I look forward to not just me going on and on, but to any questions and dialogue and conversations that might come from this what I have to say. The first thing I'd like to point out, which was missed in your intro, was I was born and grew up in Zimbabwe. So I'm Zimbabwean first. After high school, moved to the UK, mainly to avoid military service in the army, pre-independence army, and the situation that was happening there. So I lived in the UK for 12 years and then moved to Sydney, Australia, where I lived for many years before returning to this part of the world 4 years ago. So I've sort of been around in a big circle from Africa to the UK to Australia, and as you highlighted, had two previous startups, all internet-based, obviously, where we were very active in expanding to the US market and European market. So I've had a lot of experience in developed countries and the big internet traditional markets like the US. But I have to say, the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my career has been to come back here and do what we're doing here in South Africa, which has really meant a lot to me. And I've rediscovered or reconnected with my African roots, which is also part of the reward of being here. So I'm really committed and excited, and have persevered with this, the business we're doing here, because of the difference in part that we're making in Africa, where I come from. So I hope I'm bringing some of the experience and learnings I've had from that long journey to bear in our endeavors here. But it's really, really good to be here. Our company, DataFree, actually, sometimes I'm a little bit, I don't know if embarrassed is the right word, but I'm very happy to acknowledge that we're actually quite an old startup. We still talk like a startup, behave like a startup, and we're now in a good growth phase. But that's our culture, and it's been a long journey to get to this point of 12 or 13 years, actually. And during the first 7 or 8 years of that journey, we actually had developed software targeting feature phones and data access in emerging developing markets. And we had this idea sitting in Sydney, Australia, funny enough, but it's perhaps the heritage I have here that caused us to think about the opportunity in emerging markets. And in particular, the number of people in emerging markets that were coming online or online today is a very large number in the global terms. So whilst developed regions like the US, Europe, and Australia, or wherever, maybe have 2 or 3 billion online citizens, the number of people in emerging developing markets is bigger than that. And I've always seen that as a big macro level opportunity from a business startup technology point of view, as well as, potentially having positive impact in terms of overcoming some of the challenges in this part of the world to be a digital citizen in the way that Silicon Valley, for example, talks about and assumes everyone has access to. And it often frustrates me, or is a hot button of mine when I listen to tech industry people, and I've played in that space and I've been to Silicon Valley many times, talk in as though everyone is like them. It infuriates me, actually, because the reality on the ground, not only here in South Africa, but the rest of the continent and many other emerging market regions, is not the same as the privilege of being in Silicon Valley, for example. And you know, tech industry people and entrepreneurs, some of whom are brilliant in their own right, they have often not sufficient empathy, I would say, for the reality of life in other parts of the world, and they can't just bring their solutions and ideas into markets where some fundamental things just may not, it's not a question of not working, but affordability, income levels are much lower. People can't have big fancy smartphones, whichever one is the latest model, and have unlimited data and get online and do all these wonderful things. The realities of life in a region like here, where we are in South Africa, where I am, is not even close to that. And I'm really thoughtful, and we think a lot about those fundamental challenges and how we can overcome some of those barriers and enable people to be full digital citizens in the way that the tech industry sort of talks and just makes assumptions that everyone is. So back to your question, along this long journey of being here today, at one period of time for about 2 years, our previous feature phone sort of app software we saw suddenly, ironically, given where I come from, took off in Zimbabwe the minute Econet there, the largest network, zero-rated our app for various reasons which weren't directly related, but we saw what a huge difference it makes when there is no data cost for a person to use an app or access a website in that scenario, because it was zero-rated on the largest network in Zimbabwe. And at one stage we had 750,000 people in Zimbabwe using our app, which by then was on Android as well. And funny enough, when Econet one day cleaned up all their zero rating stuff and were reviewing everything and shut various things down, including our app, our user numbers dropped 80% overnight. And that was a very graphic display to me of the value of being zero rated, or no data cost for a person to access an online service, reinforce that when you turn it off, everyone stopped using it. So it was a really powerful learning. And a year or two after that, I'd been to India a couple of times, and I read about Airtel in India at the time, which was the largest mobile network, announced a new product called Airtel Zero, but it was based on this idea of reverse billed mobile data, meaning not only is it zero rated, but the data usage is measured and billed to an enterprise publisher company who provides a service through those zero rated IPs. In other words, it's like toll-free data in the same way you think of toll-free calling. And the minute I heard that after the Zimbabwean experience, I was just like a light bulb moment. I thought, this is a really interesting thing. In other words, giving the opportunity to an enterprise or a company or a business, whatever it is, to pay the data cost for users to access a digital service, instead of assuming that the user has the money and the affordability to access an online service. Toll-free calling has made sense in all around the world for a few decades now, at least, where a company pays for you to call them. Well, now you can do that with data. And we've built our business around that fundamental, it's not idea, but fundamental product that mobile networks now offer to do what we're doing today. And as I said, it was a long journey of learning and experience to get there, but maybe our experience was a little bit unique, having had that experience in Zimbabwe. But everything we do now is about data-free services, meaning no cost to the mobile subscriber, because a company or an enterprise is paying the data costs instead. And I'll stop there, and I can talk a lot more about the specifics of that, but that's a long answer to your question in terms of how I got here.
Okay, thanks for sharing. I think it's very interesting to hear about sort of your personal nexus, and how, you know, you having grown up in Zimbabwe really influenced and shaped the idea around, obviously, how you think about innovation and the impact of the users you are wanting to make a difference in their lives. And I think on that, so you spoke about having quite a long kind of classifying DataFree as a startup, despite having had, you know, quite a long journey. What are your thoughts around, you know, iteration and pivoting in kind of a really fast-paced and changing world, and how has that played out in your journey, right? So you obviously had this concept initially, but how has DataFree kind of evolved over that 13-year period to become what it is now? You obviously kind of, I know you kind of described what your objective was in the beginning, but how did you kind of pivot and iterate over the 13 odd year period to get to where you are now?
Well, really, the first sort of 1.0 version of our business came to complete death 5.5 years ago. Literally nothing, no employees, no money, no nothing, but still an idea and a passion. And I was fortunate to meet an investor in the UK who liked our idea, like me, liked what we were trying to do, and put new investment into the business. So really what you see today is 5.5 years old, and we started from scratch. So really the first 7 years was a learning, an investment in learning, which we've then adapted to bring into what we're doing today. But this version of the business is 5 years old, and all the technology we have today was built from scratch, starting 5.5 years ago. So kind of a high level answer to your question is, in a broad sense, never give up, persevere, think, adapt, listen, understand market opportunity, see new opportunity. That's really what we've done, I've done for this period of time, and it's been very difficult at times, I can assure you, with failure and, as I said, you know, nothing at one point. So, I mean, that's just a general comment on what any startup entrepreneur or business entrepreneur should be doing. But it's the other big lesson is it's really, really important to, you know, in the tech industry, we can get a bit carried away with our own ideas sometimes, and our own magnificence and understanding of technology, and we're all prone to it and guilty of it, perhaps me included. So, what a big learning is you've got to have those ideas and that passion and the dream and the energy and all the rest of it, but nothing will succeed unless you're laser focused on market need, opportunity, customer need, whether that's business or consumer, and constantly trying to improve and curate and optimize your user experience, whether that's a B2B service or a B2C or whatever it may be. And, you know, I've taken inspiration over the years from people like Steve Jobs and others who are laser focused on that, absolutely, and is a key, not the only, but a key point or tenant of their success. And, you know, Apple and iPhone and all the rest of it is a really great example of that. And it always comes first, not the business need or how much money am I going to make or this, that, or the other, or how important I'd become or whatever. All those things somewhat motivate us, of course. But if you keep that focus on customer need, opportunity, market opportunity, I believe you can't succeed unless you do that. So it's really important, but you will be successful if you always keep that as a priority. So in terms of what we do, you know, really we're building our total focus is to build a good business around this idea of data-free. We're not here as a complete charity, just trying to do good for the world and tell everyone how to suck eggs, which also annoys me when people come from overseas to this continent and sort of prognosticate to everyone saying, we know best, I've done it before, you just do what I say. You know, it's important to keep that ego in check. There are realities in life here on the ground, and whole other sets of opportunities that are different from developed markets. So constantly focus and think about that. And we're here to build a good business whilst having positive impact. We're not here as a charity sort of lording it over everyone. This is a good idea and has unique opportunity as it started out in this part of the world. And I can explain more in due course, but what we're doing here in South Africa with this idea of DataFree, to the best of my knowledge, is unique in the world. I was recently in Australia, and I've had a huge, one of the top 20 companies in Australia saying, we would like to do this for our employees in Australia. And I almost said, what? And when they explained the rationale of it, it made sense. And I met mobile networks in Australia, and they said, what are you talking about? We've never heard of this. And what I realized is what we're doing here, have been doing for the last 3 years in South Africa, we're ahead of most of the world. I fully intend to take this concept to America and Europe. And, our company chairman was recently talking to a top senior, very top civil servant in the UK about this idea of DataFree and how it can help the digitally disadvantaged in the UK connect to government services and benefit services and health services. And they'd never heard of it before. And here we are saying, well, we've been doing this for 3 years in South Africa. We can show you exactly how to do it and all the learnings we've developed. So that becomes even more motivating and rewarding, because I realized that the technology innovation and business model innovation we brought to South Africa has value all over the world, not just emerging developing markets, and we are leading the way. Yeah. Again, a long answer to your question, but I think it's important to share that sort of context. And it's because of those key principles I outlined earlier. Don't give up, stay focused on the market need opportunity, build a good business model around it, and we have a chance of success.
Right. Yeah. I think, that's really important. Thanks for sharing. One of the things you said actually reminded me of something I read on LinkedIn this week that said, the best businesses solve not for products and services, but for outcomes. And so I think, that sentiment around being really laser focused around like what it is you're solving for your users is super important to remember. So in a recent interview that you did with 702, I saw, one of the quotes there was, the money is with business and not users. And so obviously you are, the premise, or one of the fundamental premises of your model is around engaging with MNOs or mobile network operators. So what kind of advice or perspective can you give startups around really engaging with big business from the perspective of, being, I suppose, a small fish in a big pond, and really approaching kind of the big dogs? You have this novel concept, you have great ideas around how you want to execute, you have some traction, but really, how do you increase your chances of success when you engage with big business as a startup?
Well, I've definitely learned many times that can be really tough, because, big business tends to like dealing with other big business, and it's a little club of important business people that sort of, that's my cynicism. So getting in is invariably difficult. There's no easy way. Sometimes it's a good luck you make, or finding a contact, or keep knocking at the doors and open a door where someone will listen, and you articulate the value of your proposition, whatever it may be, and getting that first bit of traction or engagement with big business can be the toughest of all. But once you've got it, and again, perseverance is really important, it becomes a case study or reference point or role model for other businesses or people to maybe give it a bit more thought than they might have done when you're just a nobody startup knocking on the door. So it's that first hurdle that is often the hardest, but things flow from that once you establish it. It's hard. It's very difficult to forecast that in a spreadsheet and say what will happen. These things become more predictable when you've got some, momentum underway, and you can plan and forecast and whatever, but those first few steps are almost unforecastable. And the only way that'll happen is by persistence and articulating clearly your value and proposition. And, you know, a big theme of mine these days is empathy. The more you understand about where your audience or whoever it may be is coming from, what ticks their boxes, what do they need, what are they looking for? And that applies in talking to a business person or thinking about a user or partner, whoever it may be, you will increase your chances. So again, in the tech industry, we can easily become a bit evangelical because we're tech people, we know about all this stuff, it's really exciting and we can talk about it. But, you know, sometimes the more we do that, the less empathy we have. You've got to stop yourself and really think about what is it this business person and a big company is really looking for, what's going to tick their box. And it's not you crapping on about how great the world is and evangelizing things. It's actually, it's going to save you money or make you more money or make your life easier. That's the empathy you need to maximize your chances of getting in that door and getting traction in the first instance. And as I say, I'm as guilty of it as anyone. I have been many times where I can crap on about all things digital and technological, and there's a time when you've got to stop and listen and empathize and talk in the language of someone else, especially if you're trying to get a deal or a customer or whatever it may be.
Right. Yeah.
I see a lot of, I mean, I don't want to patronize by any means, but you've got to have that passion and energy as a startup and a young entrepreneur for sure. If you don't have it, don't bother. It's a balance of not getting so carried away with that you're not listening anymore. You know, I think amazingly, it's worth watching videos of Steve Jobs and what he did. He was a super bright guy, but he was a master at understanding technology and how to bring things together, but actually focus on customer need experience as a priority. And he was a genius, I think, in doing that. You know, when he go and watch his first presentation ever, his first presentation when he announced the iPhone, it's a lesson we should all watch once a year to remind ourselves. It was genius. And he didn't stand up and crap on about how great he was, Apple was, blah, blah, blah. He actually just put out a product that was unique, revolutionary, really resonated with people, and he explained it so well. And there was so much years of investment and thought and stress that had gone behind that initial pitch, but you didn't see any of that. You just saw the end result, and it changed the world.
Yeah. I mean, that's so profound. Just, it's very interesting to hear you talk about, you know, empathy, because a lot of us can kind of get caught up in this hubris of, you know, the innovation and the cutting edge technology of it all. And really, we don't often sit down and reflect around, like, you know, how can I empathize with what this person needs and what they ultimately want to achieve. So that's a really good point. And communicate in a language that resonates with them. So a lot of what we do in our Moya app business, I'm thinking about the mainstream market in South Africa and townships and people who have limited incomes and all the rest of it. And it's really been important to us to go and get into Soweto, wherever it may be, and listen and learn and understand language. And we tend in our business and mindset, especially with my years of experience in America and Australia, to talk in a language and use words that sound amazing to us, but don't mean anything to the person you're talking to. They don't even understand what you're saying because we're not talking in their language. And that's just a little example of empathy. Use words and language and reference points that resonate with the audience we're thinking about, and not our own hubris, as you put it. Thank you for that insight. I think now a lot of us are super excited to see this, or to get into the demo. And so if you are ready, we can segue into that. I know, you know, a lot of us in this DIT community are solving for some sort of democratization of whatever, whether it's democratization of access to healthcare or access to banking systems. So it's really exciting to see how one could potentially leverage what DataFree and Moya have to offer and integrate them into our system. So if you're ready, you can take it away.
Could I just give a little bit of perspective to it first, so it hopefully makes a bit more sense or is relevant? But and I'll be brief now. We have two businesses. DataFree is a B2B software as a service platform that any company, enterprise, government agency can use our solution to make access to their digital services data-free. So they have websites, apps, they want their audiences to connect without having to worry about data costs. We enable that for them through our tech because they are paying the data and we can make anything data-free pretty much. So that's a B2B business, and we have a lot of 200 customers in Australia using that service. But at the same time, I also saw an opportunity for how does anyone in industry here, whether it's an advertiser, a company, NGO, a government agency, reach mainstream South Africa? Because a lot of online thinking and marketing defaults to advertise on Google, Facebook, or whatever. And the real challenge there is a lot of the people you might be trying to reach as a mainstream market aren't there. They're not hanging out on Facebook every 5 minutes. Data affordability is a significant barrier. So they can't afford to be jawling around Facebook all day long. So if you're a consumer brand advertiser, how do you actually reach those people online? And it's much more difficult than the tech industry would have you believe, because they have you believe everyone's online all the time doing this stuff. Well, they're not, because data affordability is a challenge. So, which is why in a market like South Africa, big FMCGs, consumer brands still advertise on TV, radio, billboards, because that's how you reach the mainstream market. They're not in Facebook that much. They've all got a Facebook account, but they're not there most of the time. And sure, people are searching Google, you can get maybe better penetration, but again, they're resistant to clicking on things and going and spending data to click around the internet, because data cost is a scarce resource, and people are very thoughtful about what they do with the data they do have. So I also realized through a long story that whilst we did some research, the majority of people in South Africa, I know this for sure, if you take the smartphone users in South Africa, more than 50% of them have less than 5 apps on their phone that they installed. Now, I'm a tech industry guy. I played in all that space, and that is like a smack in the face saying, what? What do you mean? They have less than 5 apps on their phone that they installed. Obviously, a phone comes with. And the reason is they don't have space on their phones, and there's a cost of data to download it and update it. And there's a real problem there. So how on earth do you, if you've got an app idea, even get on the phone in the first place? It's not a function of how clever your idea is and what you've done to build it. It's you can't even get on the phone. So distribution is the number one challenge with any online service, meaning how do you reach people and have them engage with your app or website? Which is why every startup lands up spending money they don't have, or it's a struggle on Facebook, Google to get eyeballs on their thing, thinking that's where you build an audience. It's really, really hard and expensive if you rely on those big ad platforms. So that is the number one challenge for anybody doing anything online, whether you're a big company or small company, startup. It's actually reaching and engaging people online. It's really difficult. But when in our research, we asked people, well, if you've got only 1 to 5 apps on your phone, what are they? Everybody had messaging, WhatsApp. So everybody messages. We all do it. We can't live without it, actually. And as great as WhatsApp is, and it's great, if you don't have data, you can't use WhatsApp. I'm willing to bet everyone here has experienced either not being able to communicate themselves because we don't have data for whatever reason, or not being able to communicate with someone because they don't have data. It's really a lot of friction in life when that happens. So there's WhatsApp. It's the dominant messaging app by far in this part of the world. But if you don't have data, you're not in the ecosystem of basic communication. So we thought, well, if we're going to do anything data free, why don't we do messaging? So like WhatsApp, but no data cost. And the best thing about this data-free idea is when you have no airtime data on your phone, it still works. So if I'd run out of a data bundle or airtime with something that's data-free, I can still do it. So we made a messaging app in the first place called MOYA app that started with data-free messaging. And I had to guide our developers saying, don't reinvent messaging, just make it like WhatsApp, but we're going to make it data-free. So I'm not trying to be better than WhatsApp or have more features, functions. We're just do what WhatsApp does, but data-free as a basic principle. And we put it into market here and it went viral. It started going viral. We thought, geez, this is a good idea. But then the real inspiration was WeChat in China, because that's truly an all-in-one super app. It's amazing what WeChat has done in China. One app that does chat and all the things you think about with chat and calling and all the rest of it. And inside WeChat are 12 million services. You don't download an app for everything, which is how Silicon Valley thinks. You have one app and you get everywhere with it. In WeChat in China, 12 million services inside that one app. They just plug in. You can buy flowers, book tickets, get games, search, list, get music, do everything and anything. You can buy a flipping Ferrari if you want to in that app. They're all in WeChat. You're not in the game in China unless you're in WeChat in terms of online. And then, of course, there's WeChat Pay, which is the mobile wallet that everybody in China uses all day long for everything, from the smallest transaction at a street vendor all the way up to anything. And it's phenomenal. But it's never happened at that kind of scale in any Western market ever, because Silicon Valley, what they think is there's an app for everything. Get a nice phone with lots of storage, lots of data, and have 150 apps on your phone. The Silicon Valley view of the world is, how cool is that? Well, I know absolutely it's not cool in Africa, or at least in this part of the world, nor many other countries, because where are you going to get a phone that can install 150 apps and pay for the data and keep it all up to date? That is not reality on the ground for the vast majority of people in this region. And we all know it. I'm just telling you the obvious. I'm telling you what you already know. So that WeChat idea actually makes absolute sense for Africa.
Right.
I only want one app on my phone and I can chat all day long. It doesn't cost me data. I can access all these other things. And we then introduce the idea of a mobile wallet, money account inside the one app. So now in the one app, I can pay, I can be paid, I can transact, I can send money to people, I can chat to them, and I can browse all this content all in the one app. That is what MOYA app is. And it started out with that basic understanding that people here, majority of people don't have the space to install apps and the data cost. Everyone loves WhatsApp, but it costs you money. And WhatsApp is completely dominant in emerging markets around the world, all continents. And where it has massive, massive network effect, and no one has ever disrupted WhatsApp, ever, anywhere. WeChat came to South Africa, as some of you will know, and completely failed. And every now and then people talk about Telegram, Signal here, but they have absolutely no traction, or at least engagement in terms of people actually using them. And when there was a WhatsApp outage for an hour, a few hours or whatever, everyone just lives with it, gets over it, and then they're back on WhatsApp. Nobody has disrupted WhatsApp anywhere where they are dominant, ever. We are doing it for the first time here in South Africa. And what's the value proposition of being able to disrupt a giant incumbent with massive network effect? You have to come to market with a value proposition that is so compelling to people that they even consider using an alternative to WhatsApp. And the secret sauce of that starts with data-free. Telegram isn't data-free, nor Signal, and WhatsApp's great, but I'm frustrated because I don't have data, or people don't. But there's this other app called MOYA app, which is a South African word, and it's data-free. Okay, I'm willing to think about it. So today, MOYA app in South Africa has 6 million monthly active users, which is 1/4 the size of WhatsApp in South Africa. And we've never advertised it or marketed it or spent all that crazy money on Google, Facebook trying to get people to come and use it. It speaks for itself. The value proposition, the user experience is great and people say, I love this, I'm going to tell all my friends about it. It's the cheapest form of marketing you can ever get, but it doesn't happen just because you say it's going to happen. It only happens if there's real value to an end user and they like it, then they're inclined to encourage others to use it. If they don't like it, they'll ditch it. And one of my mantras in this whole journey is free crap is still crap. Just making something free or data free doesn't solve anything. If it's crap, it's crap. It's like a cake. If you've got a delicious cake and you put icing on it, it's mega delicious. Data free is icing, but the cake's got to be good. If it's no good cake, doesn't matter how much icing you put on it, it's still no good. So that's the genesis of Moya app and the inspiration from, you know, DataFree and WeChat in China, and realizing the need here in South Africa in this case. That's what led to doing Moya app. So I'm happy to show it to everyone, unless there are any questions. We'll give you a brief taste of what Moya app is. And it's a platform. So there's enormous opportunity for businesses, young entrepreneurs, whatever, to come and be on the platform. We can make you data free or not, your choice. And to reach our audience without spending a single dollar on advertising, because they're in the app, they're highly engaged because they use it every day for multiple things. And they're very responsive when they're not worried about, is this going to cost me data to do this thing? Sure, I'll come and have a look at this thing if it's interesting. It's data free, why wouldn't I? So I truly believe we're building a platform here where so many startup ideas and innovation and everything from the daily hustler all the way up can actually be on the platform, reach people, communicate with them and transact with them without having to do all those other complicated things that you need to do today to even have a chance of achieving that.
Wow.
So I'll check if there are any questions, and then I'm happy to show it to you quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of questions, but but I'm gonna just let Kopano kind of lead the charge to see if there are any questions from the rest of the audience. And while he does that, I'll just say it's so inspiring what you're doing. I mean, I think about how WhatsApp and Telegram and those sort of instant messaging apps tout themselves as free, right? When in essence they're not. And so even when you are kind of put against them as, you know, they're put against Moya or whatnot as a competitor, there is kind of a fundamental unique selling point that they don't have that Moya has. And that I mean, I can't even imagine, you know, how you speak about like Silicon Valley and how they make a lot of assumptions. And so it's interesting to kind of figure out how you then sell it to the rest of kind of developed markets who perhaps don't think in the lines of developing markets where cost of data is a significant kind of barrier to accessing services, etc. But let me hand over to Kopano. Kopano.
You're on mute, Kopano.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect. I actually thought was chopping. Guess it was me. So I actually do have a lot of questions, but I'll ask a few and I'll leave space for the rest of the audience to pull through their questions. But Gour, you mentioned something incredible, that Moya app has 6 million users.
Active users. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So that means that the funnel is quite bigger at the top, obviously. So 6 million active users without any marketing. So what was the launch like? It's a two-in-one question, but it's one and the same thing. What was the initial launch like that led to that virality? And then over time, is there a trend on who is using Moya? Are there any trends on the adoption stats at all?
Sure. I've just put links to our websites in in the chat, the Zoom chat, and one link I'm going to put now is to the business page on our Moya site, and that gives a good, on that first business page, there's a profile of our audience makeup in South Africa. So Moya app is very focused on South Africa because you need network effect and scale to be interesting or relevant in the market. So we're not trying to get Moya users all over the world. We want to be dominant or be a major platform in South Africa. So 98% of Moya app users are in South Africa. They're not sprinkled around the world, they're here. And it's sufficiently big enough now for mainstream business and advertisers and others to say, geez, this is where people are. I want to reach and engage them. So the business strategy of Moya app is actually to build an audience like any TV station does or radio station does, and then sell to businesses different ways to engage that audience. It's not just advertising, it's messaging. I can have chatbots and engage people in Moya. They never have to worry about data to chat with me. I can notify people through messaging. I can advertise in the Discover part of Moya app, which you'll see. But we have customers who put their websites in Moya app because we have all this data-free technology. We can take anyone's website and put it in Moya in 15 minutes, and it will be data-free. So now people who are in Moya, it's like being in a shopping mall. If you're in the shopping mall as a business, people walk in your door because you're going to where the people are. Instead of advertising to people saying, hey, don't go to the shopping mall, whatever, come to my shop. This is how real world works. You have to market and advertise because people have to go out of their way to come and visit you. That's what a click-through is online. I'm happy wherever I am and there's an ad or something. I want to click through out of where I am to go to the place that might be of interest to me, and it's costing me data. In the case of Moya app, a business like ShopRite, big supermarket chain in South Africa, can have their website in Moya and people just walk in the door and it's all data free. And ShopRite pay us the data cost for those users to engage on their website. So they don't buy clicks from advertising, which they do on Google, Facebook. In our case, they just put the website in Moya. People walk in the door and they pay us for the data used with a margin that, people using their website. It was really difficult at first to explain to the marketing people at ShopRite how this even works, because their whole mindset is the Google, Facebook model, which is you have ads, you place them, you get fancy reports and you get click-throughs and you pay a pretty penny to Google, Facebook for the privilege of that. So when I said, no, we're not going to charge you clicks, we're going to charge you data, they go, huh? How does the marketing person has to, it's a whole brain phase because they don't even understand that. Well, I'm buying megabytes of data, not clicks. But when they see the value, it turns out it's cheaper or better value than buying all that crap on Google, Facebook. Because the market ShopRite is targeting in South Africa. For those of you that aren't in South Africa, it's a mainstream supermarket chain, the biggest in South Africa. It's always focused on low price, the cheapest price ever. They have a huge customer base in South Africa who are very cost conscious. And then they try and advertise online to reach that cost-conscious customer to come and look at their website to see the special deals for the week so they can plan their shopping. I can tell you right now, that customer is not jawling around on Facebook, happy to click on an ad, or Google for that matter, to go and look at ShopRite. Because they're counting their pennies, they're saving their money for cheap chicken or whatever it is. They're not where ShopRite thinks they are, or the marketing people do, because there's no empathy. The marketing guy has an iPhone in his pocket and says, where is everyone? Well, they're not there. They're in your shops, or they want to know what day of the week I should come to the ShopRite shop to get the special offer on a basket of groceries. So, but they are in Moya because it's not costing them data, and they're chatting with their friends and family and all the rest of it. And they can love going to the ShopRite website in Moya because they don't have to worry about how much is this costing me in data. So I always like to emphasize that the issue in this continent is affordability of data. A lot of people have incomes. They don't have a lot, but they have an income. They live, right? So it's not poor people with no money. It's people with lower disposable incomes who are very careful with their money. That's the market we think about first and foremost. And that is most people in South Africa. So again, tech industry people from outside, Silicon Valley or wherever, they infuriate me because they have this patronizing view that there's all these poor people with no money and you've got to do special things to help them. No, they're not. They're working every day. They're earning cash. They count their money day to day. They're very careful about their money. They want nice things, of course, but they will rather save 10 Rand on a deal on Tuesdays for chicken in ShopRite and use that money for something else. That's how they think. So data-free makes complete sense to people in that situation. And actually, if you provide a great experience, lots of people end up liking it, even when they can afford data, because it's a great app and you can do all these things you can't do in WhatsApp, etc. So maybe it's best if I give you a quick glimpse of it, and I won't spend a long time on it, just a flavor for what it looks like, if that's okay.
Yeah, we can do that actually, just to capitalize on this moment. So you can go through the app. I know we do have some questions from Slido as well, but let's go through the demo and then we'll come back to the Q&A.
Okay. To do the demo, I've got to unplug the lead from my camera, webcam, and put it into my phone. So I will disappear, but I will share my screen with my phone. So it is a live demo, by the way.
Lovely.
Just give me a second to get it going.
Cool. All the founders in the room, I'm sure, can relate to live demos. We're all praying for you.
I don't need it.
I can't wait to get to the point where I can say that.
Right, hopefully you can all see that now.
There we go. We can see your screen.
I'm using some software which connects to my phone, and this is my actual phone. This is the real thing live. I'm in an office on a Wi-Fi network, but I can assure you absolutely, if I was on a mobile network with no data on my SIM card, most of all this stuff would still work. So this is Moya. I've just started Moya. This is the chat area of Moya. So here I can chat just like I do in WhatsApp. I can chat, I can put attachments and all the rest of it, send voice notes. I will just say to be clear, because we believe absolutely in being transparent and upfront with our users. We don't trick anybody or hook them into something they don't understand. So in this chat, I can add a picture or video or whatever, and I will get a warning if I choose a picture. I've disabled the warning because I've said, don't keep showing me this, but a warning will come up to say, this is not data free. So it's the text messaging in Moya app that is data free. But if I want to send pictures and videos, the warning will say it's going to use my data, my mobile data. So we're upfront. Like I can decide to use my data and send a picture to my girlfriend or whatever, or I can do that later, but I can always chat with anybody. And you'll see at the bottom of this menu here, there's something's changed. I can actually send voice notes. Now, he's on iPhone, that's why I can't do it. So if I send a voice note to Sipiwe, you'll see at the bottom, I can record a voice data free, and it will send a voice note up to a minute long at a lower compression with compression. So I'll still hear the voice note very clearly if someone's speaking. But if I want to sing a song or play music or whatever to Sipiwe, I can send a high quality voice note, in which case I will pay the data cost. So if I'm just sending a note saying, hey, I'm running late, I'll catch you later, or whatever, it works fine. But if I want to sing him a song, then I probably want to use the high quality option to get all the sound range of singing and music or high fidelity sound for whatever it may be. So I can do all the things in chat that I can do in WhatsApp. One innovation, the only innovation we made for chat, recognizing behavior in this part of the world, was we separated group chat from personal chat. People here love that, because now all my groups which are busy they don't mess around with my inbox of personal chat. I can find the message from Sipiwe because I'm not going through a dozen chat groups at the same time. And it's because chat groups are widely used here, and it's a big, culture here is very community oriented. I'm in chat groups with my family, my extended family, my church, my university friends, whatever. group chat here is used widely and it's busy, and it often messes around with just finding your personal chat. And it takes being on the ground here, listening to people to even understand that. I doubt you'll ever see WhatsApp doing it because they don't think like that. And I don't want to disparage them, and they're a fantastic app and technology, but we listened to people here and this suggestion was made and we did it. So in the chat area, there's nothing surprising. It's exactly what you'd expect to find in WhatsApp. Including calling, which, you know, if I want to call Sapiwe, and we do this all the time, I can tap that icon at the top and make a call to him. We don't want him to answer, but again, the warning will come up saying this is not data free, it's going to use your data. So I'm always clear as a user what the proposition is, but texting is the most important thing of all. I can live without other things, but texting I need. To say, so, I'm running late, I can't come to work today, where to meet you, pick me up, I'm stuck, and I love you, whatever. Texting is the simplest thing of all, and it's the most profoundly important. So at the bottom here, there's the statuses icon, if you look across the bottom, and then there's this discover icon. This is what makes Moya really different from WhatsApp. So in here, I have a whole range of content services, many of which are data free, and if they're not, I'm told about it, but I can read the news from various sources in South Africa. We have 200,000 people a day reading Zulu news in South Africa on Moya app for free, data free. So Iselezwi is a popular Zulu newspaper, 200,000 people a day reading this in Moya, and it's something like 1 million a month. There's various news sources, some of which you'll recognize. It's really quick and fast because we compress data and deliver it very quickly to save on data costs, but it makes the whole user experience much better and faster than going to big fat websites stuffed full of ads or whatever. I won't see an ad if I read SA News from Arena Holdings, a big news publisher here. It's quick. And it's as quick as this on a mobile connection. And there's none of all that ad crap in the way. It's actually nice. People like reading it. And it's data free. So I can sit in a taxi for 40 minutes a day going to work, you know, in Joburg or whatever, and I can read my news. I can get sports scores. I can check the weather. I can read books even. I can get the celebrity news. All kinds of things can be done in Moya Discover. So we've aggregated and curated content and created this very simple experience, but simple is good here, it works. If I go to Marketplace, you'll see the ShopRite website there. So this is literally the ShopRite website. We don't do anything to it. We're just connecting people data free to ShopRite through Moya app. So I am looking at the ShopRite website in Moya app. I haven't left, I haven't clicked anything, I haven't gone anywhere, I haven't bounced around Google's click trackers and all the rest of it. I'm just looking at ShopRite here. I can check out the specials and plan my shopping. So likewise, some of you may be familiar with Abo by Nedbank in South Africa. It's they bill themselves as a super app and whatever, it's a shopping app. The majority of their users come through Moya app. So, so that here's some special deals they're offering, but I can, just go here and visit the full website. So I'm now looking at the Abo website by Nedbank in Moya data free. And Abo have seen Moya users, who some people say are poor people with no money, which is nonsense, buying smeg white goods in here. They come and browse the shopping and they buy kettles and, you know, microwaves and whatever from a top brand here, smeg, and they're accessing it and doing their shopping through Moya app. And it's data free. So that's two examples of customer websites that are in Moya. I can buy bus tickets from QuickBus. So I can search a bus trip. This site aggregates all the bus transport. I can pay with Moya Pay. You'll see at the bottom there. We'll get into that in a second. I can buy my bus ticket in Moya app data free. And QuickBus are paying the data cost and a small commission on any bus ticket sales they make through Moya app. But I haven't left Moya app, by the way. I'm doing this all in this one app. So that's Discover as a quick, I'll just show you one more that MediVoucher, a new company here with huge funding from overseas international development funds to provide medical vouchers that you can purchase in here and redeem at private clinics all around South Africa, Ujani clinics. So I can choose a type of service I'm after. I can say I'm in Cape Town. I don't know where these places are, and I can search for medical services. So I can pay 250 Rand to buy this. It's a voucher for this medical service. I'm doing it quickly, so these aren't nearby. You can see from the kilometers, but I can find the services, private medical clinics near me, or I can buy a voucher and send it to my mother back in the village so she can go and get a medical service. And this voucher can only be used for this medical service. Makes sense. So it's a real innovation, and there's lots of international development funders interested in this, what they're doing here in South Africa, because this is a new way to deliver medical services, which isn't a health insurance plan with an insurance company on a 12-month debit order thing. Companies are interested because they can support employees with the medical services they need as and when they need them by buying these vouchers. So when you buy a voucher, you can't drink it, gamble it, or spend it on something else. It can only be used for this medical service. And this in Moya app is exactly the audience they're interested in reaching with this sort of product, for people to use themselves or for friends and family. So there's another example of a service in Moya. So at the bottom here is Moya Pay, which is our mobile money account. It's very rich in features. I have 6,000 Rand in my account, which is a balance in my Moya Pay account, plus I have a prepaid MasterCard, which is that second balance at the bottom. I can put money on my MasterCard and go and spend it in any shop in South Africa. I personally live on Moya Pay in South Africa. I do not have a bank account because this is cheaper and better in many respects. I can send money out to any bank account as an EFT to pay my rent or whatever. I can pay other people in Moya Pay at no cost. There's no monthly account charge. It's always data free. That we don't charge people to spend their money, which is what the banks do. You have money in Capitec, they make you pay to get it out, to spend it. We do the opposite. We don't charge people to spend their money. Businesses will pay a commission to have people spend their money with them. So it's always this idea that it's not that people don't have any money personally, it's businesses and enterprises that also have money that want to reach and engage people, and we're facilitating that through Moya app. So there's a very rich feature set of how I can pay, be paid. It's all QR code based. I don't need a POS machine to be paid. I can hold up a QR code. Any banking app in South Africa can pay me. So if I want to get paid, I can literally, this is my QR code, present this either as a piece of paper or on a screen, and any of those banking apps at the bottom can pay me through Nedbank, Absa, Capitec, whatever, or another Moya Pay user can scan and pay that code, and it won't cost them anything or me anything when it's within Moya. So we're talking to street vendors and small businesses who get onto the platform. They just have their QR codes, put it on their tabletops or on their counters, and people can pay with any banking app, as well as obviously with Moya Pay. So, I mean, I could talk at length about each of these things, but that's the essence of Moya app, is the chat at the bottom there. Discover to access all these services and content and shopping and insurance products. If I go into the marketplace, we've got insurance companies here offering insurance policies through here. They pay advertising or lead generation rewards for finding new customers. Unilever advertising here. This is Vaseline, for example, a Unilever product. They're paying the money to be in here. We're not charging users. Businesses are paying to be in here because they can reach people. One innovation we've introduced this week, which some of you might be interested in, is in the world of media and publishing news in particular. A lot of news publishers around the world have moved to subscription models. So instead of trying to make money out of advertising via Google, which always makes much more money than any of them. The idea that you subscribe to a news service like New York Times or Financial Times or Business Live here is working really well in various parts of the world. But it works, for the mainstream market, they can't afford to pay 99 Rand a month to access, to be on a debit order subscription with News24, which is what News24 are trying to do. The price is too high. They don't want to be on locked-in subscriptions that never end and are hard to get out of. And they're absolutely not willing to use a credit card to make an online payment for trust issues, cost of transaction issues, and various things. So it's never going to work in the mainstream market. So what we're innovating, because we can do this in Moya and keep things data free, and we have Moya Pay, is, for example, for sport. We have a lot of people who follow football scores and other sports scores in Moya and out of interest, or Premier League, or they're also interested in sports betting and whatever. So we have a very popular live scores app, which is all about football, soccer. We are now introducing the idea that I prepay to access this content from 1 Rand a day. So I'll show it to you in another one. This flash score site is popular. So if I want to access this content to keep an eye on the soccer results on a busy Saturday, I can pay 1 Rand. I'm going to pay with my Moya Pay account. I have to authorize it. So that's a pop-up saying, I'm going to authorize this payment. I haven't left Moya app, by the way. I've just authorized it. I get a message saying I've paid. If I go back there, I'm now in Flash Score. I've paid 1 Rand to access this for 1 day. No data cost. It's still data free. I'm paying for the content. So if I go back to my messaging, I will see I've just received messages confirming I've paid 1 Rand and that I have prepaid access to the Flash Score app from this time to tomorrow, 24 hours time. So I've just paid 1 Rand to access the Soccer Scores app. I've done the same with the Daily Sun, which is a popular mainstream news title in South Africa. Oops, let's just do that again. If I went back through my messages, I've subscribed to the Daily Sun for a week at a cost of 3 Rand. So I can now read the Daily Sun website in Moya, data free, and I've paid 3 Rand to do this for a week. And it's not a debit order. So when it runs out, it'll say you need to pay, and I can choose when to pay. It's a prepayment. It's not a subscription that has money taken out of my account every month for 12 months, and I can't control it. So before I switch off the screen share of Moya app, should I check if there are any questions before I put my face back on the screen?
I think I'm pretty sure there's a million questions which we won't be able to cover now, but I'd say, Gour, put your face back on the screen. Let's go to the audience Q&A. And while you're playing back in, for those who want to learn more about the statistics of the users of the Moya app, if you go to one of the links that Gour posted, specifically moya.app/business, you will see all of the demographics of the Moya users. So if any of your target clients are part of these demographics, that'll give you an idea of whether you should reach out to Moya to be part of their platform. But essentially what I'm understanding, Gour, is that this is the pathway to the internet for the majority of the people in the country. And that's I can think of, quickly 10 people that would make use of this platform. So it's quite incredible, the work that you've done. I'll hand over to Ntsako to put up the Slido questions. We have 10 minutes left, so feel free to chop these how you will, Gour, given the time. But if we need to bring you back in at some point to get more understanding of how we could make use of the platform or learn more from you, we'll certainly do so. Ntsako, you ready?
Yeah, definitely.
I can see the questions, by the way, just so you know. So.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, but I'll just share them anyway on the screen.
Okay.
And then you can just do a quick draw top to bottom. Yeah, just a quick answer for each, please.
I think I probably covered the first question.
Yeah.
The lessons learned originally were the power of zero rating, the difference it made, understanding the market, going from feature phone and focusing on smartphones, which by then were becoming dominant. It was a lot of lessons learned from being in the market, thinking, learning, watching, not succeeding in that first 7 years, but taking those lessons and applying them to how we rebuilt the business. And it's a long list, but that's the essence of it. So I'm really extremely interested and passionate about the second question, because now that we've built the platform with all the features and Moya Pay and have scale in terms of reaching mainstream South Africa, I really believe, and I'm not just sort of touting my own boat here, that if you're a startup in a digital sense, you've got a digital startup idea, I cannot overstress how the biggest problem of all is not building the thing, making it work, getting funding. The single biggest challenge is actually getting eyeballs on your app or website. That is, you'll end up spending more time and money trying to do that after you built your product and launched. And everyone in the industry thinks you've got to have a launch, you've got to have an event, you've got to be on social media, you've got to do all this crap with Facebook, Google, and that's the only way you get people to engage with you. It isn't the only way, actually. And those two giants have done such an incredible job. I admire their execution enormously to convince the whole industry that you're not in the game unless you're playing on their platforms. So you got to have a Facebook page, you got to do your Instagram, and now TikTok's come into the picture, and they suck you in and bleed you dry, and you spend so much time and energy on investing in all of that stuff, and invariably land up spending money with them because they're constantly dangling that in front of you. I mean, how nuts is it that you have a Facebook page with 1 million people who like it, but if you want to talk to that 1 million people, you've got to pay Facebook to talk to them via ads or whatever. And if you don't pay Facebook, you'll only reach Facebook, throttle it down, and you'll just talk to a few % of these 1 million people that have said, I like you. It's a genius business model, but geez, does it favor one side? So I really think in Moya app as a platform, if you've got a website or thing you're doing, we can add you into the platform in no time at all. And you immediately reach 4 million people a day that are wandering around inside the app. You don't have to advertise. You just got to be there. And then if you're really smart and engage them with chat, the power of chat is enormous here. Don't just expect people to read websites and forms and fill in stuff. Chat to them. Everyone knows chat. There's no language barrier with chat. In fact, I've learned this recently, that a large number of people here are more comfortable in chat, even if it's a longer process, because it's one step at a time and they're used to chatting. They're familiar with it. You put a big web page in front of them with a thing to fill in and stuff to read. A lot of people here go, oh, too hard. I don't understand. I don't know how to answer the question. I'll just leave it. But if you take them through a chat process, it's suddenly half those problems go away, because there's only one decision to make in a chatbot type process. And you can use the right language and vernacular and so on. And if you can then link them to a payment mechanism they're comfortable with, they trust, there isn't a debit order on their account, that isn't a bank transaction fee to Capitec, which is what Moya Pay provides, it's a game changer potentially. You can reach people, you can engage them with chat and content and ads if you want. And you can, there's a commerce capability if people want to pay money or you want to pay them. You can pay people in Moya Pay. And the minimum transaction size in Moya Pay is 1 cent, South African cents. So a rand transaction is completely and entirely feasible, whereas it isn't with a credit card or debit card. We also learned with, for example, that idea of prepaying to access content. At first, we, being industry people and mindset, used the word subscribe. And my colleague Sipiwe, I was talking to him about it. He comes from Soweto originally. He basically, this has happened this week. He said, don't use the word subscribe. Subscribe to the average South African means you're going to take money out of my account every week or every day or every month until I somehow stop you. Don't use the word subscribe. What everyone in this market understands is the idea of prepay. Prepaid electricity means I pay my money, I get the amount, and that's it. And I go and buy more when I need more. I'm not signing up to a contract and a debit order thing. The mobile networks here are the worst at this. You subscribe to something on MTN for music or soccer or whatever it is. Before you know it, they're taking R3 a day off your airtime. And blow me down if you can figure out how to turn that off. We say to users in Moya Pay, because we have listened to the market, we will never, ever direct debit their accounts, ever. There will never be a subscription on their accounts that they can't control. They decide what to spend when they spend it, which is how life operates in South Africa. I earn money, I have cash in my pocket, I take it out and I spend it, and that's the end of it. So this idea, the industry idea here, they're obsessed with getting people signed up on 12-month direct debit order agreements. People in South Africa can't hate debit orders, literally hate them, because they gouge their accounts. There's a whole industry of fraud around it here. Don't ask someone to sign up for a debit order. If you say, here's the thing, would you like to prepay if it's for one day to read the news? Instinctively, they're more comfortable with that. And use the right language. Don't call it a subscription, call it prepaid content. This is hot off the press this week, continuous reflection and understanding and empathizing with the market we're addressing. And you've always got to do it. It never goes away. So I really think there's opportunities for entrepreneurs here to bring their digital thing, and it might even be linked to an offline thing or shop or commerce or service, whatever it is. You can reach people on Moya, you can engage them in many ways that they like, and it's data free, and you can transact with them, and you can do all of it or whichever part is most relevant to your need. And there's not a single ad or click or whatever involved on Facebook, Google. I really think that's got mileage in this market, and I will advocate it. And Google, Facebook will probably hate me, but that's the difference we're making. Funding is a major challenge always in whether it's small funding you're looking for or not. I was fortunate, maybe with my experience and never giving up and talking to people, and then getting introduced to a guy in the UK that actually is the primary investor in our business over the last 5 years. We're talking millions of pounds, so that's tens of millions or hundreds of millions of rand, because he believed in me and what we're doing here and the business model around it, as well as having positive impact. And I don't think there's a simple answer to how you do this stuff, unfortunately. What I did learn years ago in the first internet company I worked in Australia, which was 1996, if you guys can believe that. I learned a lot from the founder of that business at the time, and his whole, my background was IT consulting before that. So I got to know this, and the internet came along, and my whole attitude was, well, I've got no money, but I've got lots of ideas and experience, and I know tech. All I've got to do is convince someone that my shit doesn't stink, to put it bluntly, and I've got this amazing idea, and just give me the money and I'll do it, and we'll all be happy and make some money. That's one of the worst ways to ask for funding, is the hard lesson I learned. And that what I learned from the founder of that business all those years ago was, do everything you can to build as much value as you can to put on the table when you start the conversation about funding. Don't go into someone and say, I'm genius, I'm clever, I've got this great idea, I know tech, just give me some money and I'll do it. Put your own skin in the game, bootstrap it, sweat. Don't earn anything, get someone to help feed you or whatever, and prove it, build the value, and go into a meeting and put it on the table and say, look, this is what I'm talking about. Or I prototyped it or done a proof of concept, but I've actually invested my skin, my sweat, my labor in this. I haven't been paid for it necessarily. And I'm that committed to it and sure about it, that I've invested real skin in the game. You will always get more respect from an investor when you're starting out. I literally glaze over when someone comes and says, I've got this great idea, I've done all these things, I'm in a comfortable job right now. If you just give me some money, then I can leave my job and do this wonderful thing. I'm not, personally wouldn't be interested in that, because they've got no sweat or investment or skin in the game. It's just hot air. And it might be a good idea, of course, but respect that from an investor's point of view. You will always be more successful with that approach, I believe, than just trying to convince someone about the quality of your idea. And I learned this the hard way many times, by the way. So I'm a big believer in making your own luck, or another English word is serendipity. Luck doesn't happen out of the blue. You don't win lotto. That's luck. Winning lotto is pure, absolute luck, 1 in a million chance. But if you're in the game, working, talking, networking, building, showing, articulating, listening to people, that's when luck starts happening, because you make your own luck. Because you talk to someone who talks to someone who knows someone else, and suddenly you're in that meeting with a big business guy who's listening to you because you put it out there and you didn't give up and you communicated and you listened. That's how you make luck happen. And it's not actually luck. It's because of that investment you made and commitment you made that these things start happening. You can't predict them. These things happen out of the blue and they're amazing sometimes, but it was your investment in all of that sense to get there for that door to be opened. And when you walk in that door, it's not luck, it's everything you've put in to get there in the first place. That to me is an absolute huge lesson or thing to understand. We can't embed another app inside Moya. So if you have an Android app or iPhone app, we can't, the smartphone platforms don't allow you to just take 2 apps and somehow merge them. They're each in their own area on the phone, their own sandbox. They're all secured and protected because the platforms don't want apps interfering with each other. But if you have a web app, an online, a Mobi site, anything online, web app or whatever, we can put in Moya in 15 minutes and it will be data free. Question then is who pays for the data? We say to businesses, you pay for the data, we'll reach the audience, you can engage them, but that's the cost to the business. Sometimes we do revenue share, we'll take a cut of whatever value might result from it. We're open-minded, but there is a data cost whenever anything goes into Moya. So web app, and I personally, because people here don't install apps, the first thing I'd say to any startup or big company innovation is don't do an app unless you've figured out a way to get installed on phones, because that is your number one problem. That's if you're addressing the mainstream market. If you're only focused on high-end iPhone users driving cars and nice offices, a different story. But if you want the mainstream market, don't do an app. It's too hard to get installed, way too hard. And we've only succeeded with the Moya app because it's one app that does a lot of things and it's had this value proposition of data-free chat. The conclusion from research before we built Moya was, if you're going to do an app, data-free app of anything, do chat. Otherwise, you've got no chance. So that's why we chose it. I think that's all the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, WeChat has
fantastic.
many apps, which are basically little web apps, websites that go into WeChat. So we're much of the same mindset. Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Gour. With that said, I think let's hand over to Yoli, who will end the session. Yoli, you are muted. Okay, there you go.
If you can just, thank you so much, Gour. I'm so blown away. I'm like, why didn't I know about Moya app so many years ago? So I just want to thank you so much for your time. I want to thank you for all that you've shared with us. And I mean, I'm also thinking, hey, what should I be doing? I need to, reach out. I need to contact you. And I think so many other people in this chat as well, the other founders and developers are possibly thinking the same thing. So we really, really appreciate the insight and just seeing, what's possible, for South Africa, especially for the broader, market. I'm a communicator. So when you're talking about, about reaching, your mainstream, it's like, I also have the same problem where people are like, no, I've got an app. And I'm like, I'm struggling with space. So I don't know how you think I'm going to download that or where I'm going to download that, because I have to keep on deleting apps in order to download another one. And the main thing is that if I've got my bank app, my Bubble app, like I'm good. I'm not trying to, download anything. So
well,
now
you can have Moya app and have lots of things without having to install.
I've downloaded it. I've sent the link to my brother because I know there's always data issues. I'm like, hey, there's an app we can chat for free. And, let's take it from there. And he's also in business. So this is really enlightening and we really appreciate your time. And so I also want to thank Kopano Nonsago and Ongs for their support from the DIT, community for us to have these conversations. And I also want to thank Charles as well, who joined us earlier. He's in Nigeria. He's also going to be joining us in a couple of weeks in SA. So I also want to thank him for his support and for him to join us. Vu couldn't be with us tonight. He's in Europe. But I also want to thank him for helping us to connect the dots and to also meet you, Gour. And then for next week, we've got Arrow, and they also HYBR app, and they also have DataFree app. And so he'll be chatting us about their app and what is available. So I want to thank everyone for staying up with us until over 7 o'clock. It was really, I was just like so blown away. I'm like, where has Gour been? Why didn't you, know about this so many years ago? And so we're really thankful to the investor who really stuck around and said, look, let's get it up. Let's get this going. I really think, an app like this is needed. I think, especially with COVID, one of my thoughts right at the beginning of COVID, when people were not wearing masks, it was always around people are ignorant, but I was like, it's not communicated, to people in townships in a manner or that they understand. And I think apps like this, they give an opportunity for content to go to the mass market in a language that they understand, that is relevant to them and to their circumstances. So I really look forward to seeing this, the Moya app growing and doing marvelous thing in South Africa and being our next, our next Google or our next anything, but really something that is African and speaks to the African needs. So with that said, I'm not sure if Kopano, if you have any closing comments. I know that you had a whole lot of questions. We might need to invite you again, Gour, even if it's not necessarily a webinar, but perhaps just to explore some of the questions that people have. So I don't know if you want to say anything, Kopano, for closing comments to Gour.
The only thing I want to say is that thank you so much, Gour, for your time. We're super excited about the platform, and we really look forward to learning more from you. Thank you so much for giving yourself to meet with us. We're definitely going to download the app and tell our families about this incredible app. 1 cent transaction fee or like minimum transaction value is incredible. So well done to you and the team for the platform, and thank you so much for affording us your time.
Yeah, just to echo Kopano's words, my final sentiments is that Gour, we're a growing community. We recently reached about 140 founders working on scalable tech solutions, and I think every single one of them is, a prospect for the Moya app. So we really look, forward to engaging with you further, just offline, and seeing, what can we do in terms of, just getting closer to Moya as DIT and exploring the different opportunities and synergies that are hidden. So yeah, thank you so much for giving us some of your time.
It's my pleasure, and I'm very grateful to you all for even listening to me and inviting me here. So happy to do it anytime, and happy to take follow-up or have another session, whatever you think's best, where maybe more Q&A and less me evangelizing and whatever. But I'm very excited, as you can see by what we're doing. And the closing comment, I just, as one highlight, mentioned we have about 3 million people in South Africa using Moya app to access the SASSA SRD grants website, the 350 Rand. DataFree, and that's our investment in providing that to people. So that's our small way amongst many others of making a difference whilst still building a good business around the platform. But I actually have another call right now with some people in San Francisco and Barcelona who want me to go with them to Washington next month and talk about DataFree at a conference called DevX, which is the huge international development funding conference once a year. And I'm going to Washington to tell them all about DataFree and what we're doing here in South Africa. So I better get on this call with them to plan that.
Okay, cool.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great evening. Thanks, Gour.
All right.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Cool. Kopano, stick around this time.
Okay, yeah.